The best way to show your support for the channel is by gearing up through CanadianPreparedness.com or from my American subscribers, bugoutroll.ca. Our prices are as good, if not better, than Amazon. Our shipping is just as fast, if not faster, and our products are top notch. So go check it out. Enjoy the video. Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So this is going to be the third attempt at making this video. First couple times I tried making it in the boat and it was very windy the first time. Second time the camera didn't work. So anyways, here we are, end of the day. I killed more horseflies today than I think I ever have in my life, which is saying a lot because I used a tree plant. So it's just been a sick infestation of horseflies up here. It's crazy. In the morning, the water is just covered with dead horseflies. It's kind of sick. But by dusk, they're all gone. So go figure. Anyways, I wanted to talk a bit about how we're living in an age of extremes. I'm going to tie this into why people are going off-grid, why people are moving towards a minimalist lifestyle. And it's almost like a pendulum which is swinging more wildly by the day, yet on the whole, things are more average than they've ever been before. So what do I mean by that? Well, take violent crime, for instance. Violent crime is actually down significantly on the whole from since the 70s. I've seen a statistic that said crimes are more intense now, but they're fewer and far in between. So an example of a more extreme crime might be terrorism, school shootings, gang violence. Lots of gang activity involves elements of torture. So, well, kids are generally safer than they've ever been because the playgrounds are paved in rubber and everybody's wearing a helmet, and you know, there's no dogs riding in the backs of trucks anymore, and you can't smoke cigarettes anywhere. On the whole, we're safer, yet there's these wild extremes that overcompensate for everything. Another example is drugs. You know, cocaine came out, what, over 100 years ago, and that was replaced with crack. Crack was replaced with crystal meth. Crystal meth is probably it's 5 times more potent in terms of the dopamine effect that it has. Next thing is going to be this Flocka stimulant, which is even more intense than crystal meth. In terms of opiates, used to be heroin, now it's fentanyl. Fentanyl is now being replaced with this thing called carfentanil, which is like 100 times stronger than fentanyl. Looks like the mosquitoes are coming out now, so I'm gonna have to talk fast. That's why I have my stick to beat them off my back. I just had a nice dip in the pool, and I had about 50 dragonflies circling around me, eating all the bugs. That was awesome. Anyways, getting back to the whole drug thing, you know, marijuana has turned into this thing called shatter, which is a really hyper concentrated form of THC. You know, all the drugs are getting more extreme. Our tolerance for dopamine keeps going higher and higher. You have people doing increasingly more extreme sports, like the guy who jumped from space, the Red Bull thing, where he shot himself up, or I'm not sure if he jumped off an airplane or how he got up there, but basically he jumped the edge of the atmosphere. Another extreme is that of weather. So I heard a statistic the other day that said that even though there's less precipitation overall in North America, that it's more concentrated in certain areas. So you're getting heavier flooding, heavier downpours, that sort of thing. In terms of like the heat waves, there was 8,500 heat records broken in May 2018 and only 500 cold temperature ratings. A lot of people like to cite the cold temperature records, but just bear in mind there's 16 times the amount of heat records. So once again, more extremes. As above, so below. Everything's becoming more extreme. There's probably nothing more reflective of this than the US president. And not even just the US president, but just this tendency of people to just now want to say whatever they want with no filter, which in some ways is a good thing because it allows us to cut to the chase on a lot of issues. But oftentimes it just comes off as bellicose, belligerent, and bigoted. And that's not conducive towards a civilization. There's a reason why we have polity. I mean, right now, the whole flavor of the month is bashing political correctness. And while there's something to be said for that, what often happens is that people go way too far the other way to overcompensate. So kind of like how some feminists go too far, you know, people are going too far in the other direction now. And it's just going to keep doing that. It's the pendulum swinging, and it swings to greater and greater extremes until it reaches a breaking point where, you know, which usually ends in war or genocide or some kind of calamity, catastrophe. If you look at relationships, people are more dissatisfied in their marriages and their relationships than ever before. And this is leading to, I can't remember what it's called. It's not polygamy, but it's like the serial form of monogamy where you're just getting divorced, or you're not getting married anymore, basically, and you have all these middle-aged spinsters and bachelors who maybe 50 years ago would have stuck it out, but since the onset of the, you know, if it's broke, don't bother fixing it, go get a new one mentality that we've been plagued with in our throwaway, disposable society, since that's come around, people don't feel the need to work on things anymore. And that's not just material things, that's their relationships, their emotional problems. If you have a emotional issue, or if you have a psychological issue, here, pop a pill, you know, just deal with it that way. What does that create? Well, that creates extremes. Once again, you become extremely dumbed down or extremely pacified in some way, shape, or form, or extremely conformist in some way, or extremely manic. You know, the whole bipolar disorder is probably one of the best reflections of the psyche of modern man. Or ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. It's like people oscillate between hyperactivity and extreme depression that they need to medicate with psychopharmaceuticals or social media, smartphones, all of those things. Everything's getting more extreme. Hollywood, entertainment, pornography, video games. Everything is getting more and more intense because our tolerance and our pleasure seeking is becoming so hedonistic that in order to fuel this, we need to keep raising the bar. But the question is, to what end? You know, when does it end? Because at some point, we're going to reach a point where we're going to fry our frickin' neurons on the stuff that we're trying to get off to. And that's why you have the tiny home movement. That's why you have the off-grid movement. So unconsciously, or perhaps consciously, people are moving to off-grid lifestyles in order to preserve what remains of, you know, their ability to feel pleasure, because they've realized that you're never going to get satisfaction with keeping up with the Joneses in the rat race. There's not many people doing that, I should say, and it's becoming increasingly harder to do that with more and more regulation on things. So even the off-grid type people right now are still on-grid, and I don't mean that as a disrespect to them or in a condescending sort of way, but I mean, just look at YouTube, you know. All these channels are calling themselves off-grid, but they're not really off-grid. I mean, they're on YouTube. You know? One of my favorite channels, by the way, is Off Grid with Brad and Kelly at Full Spectrum Survival. Go check out their channel. I'll post a link in the description. Couple who's about my age, maybe a little bit younger, maybe older, I don't know. He's balding, so it's hard to say. But you know, lots of people are doing that, but the reality is there's no real escape anymore. Even backcountry camping, you need permits. There's all sorts of regulations restricting what you can do. So there's the nanny helicopter state hovering overhead while all of this extremism is going on in an attempt to overcompensate. And everything is just getting more extreme. You go on the YouTube trending feed and, you know, it's just, the stupidity gets ramped up higher and higher and higher every day. So what is the end game going to be? You know, is it just going to keep shifting? You know, is the dopamine dump that we get just going to keep evolving into more intricate things? Because it's going to reach a plateau at some point where we can only sustain so much pleasure for so long. Everybody in a capitalist society is just seeking pleasure, and a billionaire might get his dopamine dump through a $100,000 night on the town, you know, with the limousine and 5-star restaurant, hotels and all the rest. But some guy in the backcountry here might get the same pleasure from eating a fish that he caught in a lake. So it's totally relative. But on the whole, society's generally safer. You know, there's greater standards and greater regulations to protect the food. Things are more ergonomic than they've ever been, you know, because of technology, and Chinese mass-produced products have allowed us to have a high standard of living, relatively speaking. I mean, that's arguable with the whole GMO and blah, 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 pesticides, I know all the rest. But generally speaking, across the board, you know, but that's still, you know, you have Monsanto, who, even though you can go into the grocery store and get, you know, lots of food, you know, whatever you want, basically, that food has been monopolized. So you have every aspect of society that's been monopolized, and that's another form of extremism. So we have the media, big agra, big pharma, big everything, right? So everything is getting concentrated, but on the whole, more average. Let me know if you can think of any more examples of this in the comment section. If you think I'm out to lunch, if you have your own theories on where we're headed. I think it's reaching a crescendo. It's very likely going to coincide with some technological singularity when it all, you know, finally comes apart. If it does come apart, I should say. I don't like speaking absolutely about anything, but it would seem like there's some implosion that has to be on the horizon. It's going to be the end result of all of this. Another great example of this is nuclear weapons. You know, more capable than they've ever been before, yet the world arguably is more peaceful than it's ever been, even though there's a lot of conflict going on, a lot of meddling, a lot of interventionism and imperialism. But on the whole, things are quieter than they've ever been. It's like these extremes are really allowing society to flourish right now. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments section. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Canadian Prepper out.